Good morning. I'm Deb Colonis from Church at Sandhurst. I'm going to read scripture this morning from Psalm 90. We're on quarantine, but it's still important to get in the Word, and I love gathering with all the saints like this at Sandhurst. Lord, you have been our dwelling place throughout all generations. Before the mountains were born, or you brought forth the earth and the world. From everlasting to everlasting, you are God. You turn men back to dust, saying, return to dust, O sons of men. For 1,000 years in your sight are like a day that has just gone by, or like a watch in the night. You sweep men away in the sleep of death. They are like the new grass of the morning. Though in the morning it springs up new, by evening it is dry and withered. We are consumed by your anger and terrified by your indignation. You have set our iniquities before you, our secret sins in the light of your presence. All our days pass away under your wrath. We finish our years with a moan. The length of our days is 70 years, or 80 if we have the strength. Yet their span is but trouble and sorrow, for they quickly pass and we fly away. Who knows the power of your anger? For your wrath is as great as the fear that is due you. Teach us to number our days aright, that we may gain a heart of wisdom. Relent, O Lord. How long will it be? Have compassion on your servants. Satisfy us in the morning with your unfailing love, that we may sing for joy and be glad all our days. Make us glad for as many days as you have afflicted us, for as many years as we have seen trouble. May your deeds be shown to your servants, your splendor to their children. May the favor of the Lord our God rest upon us. Establish the work of our hands for us. Yes, establish the work of our hands. For this is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God.
Thank you, Deb. Great to hear from you. And we miss all of you so much. We love you guys. We're praying for you every day, and we look forward to being back together. And until that time, here we are. So thank you for joining us for worship and for study. About 2 months ago, I flew to Dallas with about half our staff team for a conference there to look at some amazing resources, Lord willing, we'll be rolling out in the fall. But while we were there, I met with an old friend, John Brown. We had coffee, had a great time, caught up, been friends for 20 plus years. And he mentioned to me in the course of that conversation that he had about 400 days left with his son at home. Now, he's about a year older than me. His son is about a year older than Paul. And so about midway through his junior year. And I thought, okay, this guy's counting the days he has with his son at home. And the reason is, he's not obsessive or whatever, but he's just thinking, how can I strategically use those days? How can I enjoy those days, savor those days, invest those days in my son's life? And it made me think, I've got then about 700 plus days with Paul at home, give or take, as things may go. Or how many days do I have with John or Anna? Because it actually is a finite number. You know, as Miss Terry told us, there's 936 weeks from 0 through your 18th year. And each week, as we do, take a penny from the jar. And just to remind us that tempus fugit, that time is flying. And so these questions begin to flood your mind in these moments, and you think, how am I doing? How am I doing investing my days? Am I doing, these questions can be good and healthy, but they can also be haunting because there's just no easy and simple, tidy answers to these questions. And it's not just for parents. It's also for me as a husband, as a man, as a professional, even a pastor. These moments of introspection, whatever it is, whatever the role is, the questions come in, am I doing it well? Am I making a difference? Am I doing something that matters in the end? Because like it or not, time and life are passing, okay? And opportunities to learn, to grow, to do stuff and leave a legacy, and most of all, bring honor to God are passing. They're going minute to minute, day to day. And so we want to make the most of them. We want our lives to count. We don't want to waste the life that we've been given. So at different times, we've all had this moment where something triggers these questions. How am I doing? For me, it was a visit with a friend out in Dallas a couple of months ago. For you, it may be a diagnosis that's forcing the issue. Or maybe it's a struggle with an employer or an employee. Or maybe it's just a virus that's giving you time at home alone with your family, and you're thinking, am I making the most of this time? And am I making the most of this season? In fact, for some of you, your anxiety during the virus, during the quarantine is actually increasing, not because you want to survive the virus, but because you're thinking, I don't want to waste this time. I don't want to waste this quarantine. I just want to make the most of this time where we are forced to be together. And before we go on, let's just settle that. So why don't you ask yourself, as I asked my staff this week, what would it look like for you not to waste the quarantine? If this happened, what would that look like when you got to the end of this, whenever we come out of this, that you said, you know what? I made good use of it. I'm happy with the way that went. What would that look like for you? Take a pause right now and ask yourself that question. Some of you were thinking, I wasn't worried about wasting the quarantine, but now I am. Okay, sorry about that. But here's our opportunity to make the most of this time and not waste it. But the fact is, really, we shouldn't just be asking the question, how can I make the most of my day today during quarantine? We should be asking this every day, quarantine or not. How can I make the most of my life? Well, God wrote a song about that. It's song number 90 in his playlist. So quick backstory on song or Psalm 90. Y'all remember the Exodus when Moses came out of Egypt and Israel met with God at Sinai, and God gave Moses the 10 commandments and he sent his people to the promised land. Moses sent in the 12 spies. They brought back the report. 2 said, yes, we can do it, Joshua and Caleb. 10 said, no, there's giants in the land. So they abandoned God, they abandoned the mission, and they said, forget this. And so God judged his people and sent them into the desert to wander until they were ready to be obedient and respectful. Now, that is the moment. Why does all that matter? That is the moment when this psalm was written. Moses had seen it all. Victory, huge victory in Egypt, and awesome defeat, and the fickle hearts of God's idolatrous people. That is the story of Psalm 90, and that's the same story, by the way, today. Psalm 90 is the oldest psalm, and it is the only psalm written by Moses, so that's kind of cool. Secondly, Psalm 90 is a dark psalm with hope. You could kind of expect it, seeing it come out of this environment with Moses. But it was a prayer. It's a prayer of Moses that captures this tension between living under judgment of sin and yet hopeful at the same time for redemption and favor from God. There's a rabbi out in LA today who wrote a great piece on this Psalm 90. It's in your links. You can look at his article there. But one quote from him, from Rabbi Yosef Kanevsky out in LA: none of us escapes these moments in which God's universe feels like an indifferent, punishing place, a place plagued by inexplicable tragedies and misery, a place where we are forced to expend the lion's share of our already short journey just putting food in our mouths and clothes on our backs, and a place where human corruption and sin give God more than enough reason for wrath against us. So we need to be reminded regularly that it's okay to feel the pain and to voice that struggle. Just ask Moses. So that's what the rabbi has to say about it. Let's take a look at Song 90, which gives us voice. It was Athanasius in the 4th century that said, most of the Bible speaks to us. The Psalms speak for us. And so let's take a look at Song number 90, which gives us a voice to our struggle with God. So Father in heaven, as we take a look at this text now, we pray that you would give us eyes to see and ears to hear beautiful and wonderful things in your word. Help us to see where we fit in this struggle and where you fit and how we can follow you, our good shepherd, through over peaks and through the valleys. In Jesus' name, amen. Jumping in, verse 1 and 2, we see God is big. Lord, you have been our dwelling place throughout all generations. Have you ever moved? I have. I remember as a kid, we stayed in the same place most of my growing up years, but at 7th grade, just before the 7th grade, we moved from Macon, Georgia to North Carolina for 1 year. Just before my 8th grade year, we moved from North Carolina to Atlanta for 1 year. And at the end of my 8th grade year, beginning 9th, we moved back to Macon for the rest of my high school. So 3 moves in 3 years, 7th, 8th, and 9th grades. Then after college, I went on to Nashville in Tennessee. And then after graduation, I spent a year in Texas. And then I moved to Russia. And then I moved to England. And then we moved here as a family. So we've seen some moves. And you'll know if you have moved, there's always this kind of sense of loss, like my home where I lived. It was an important, and you know how important it is to feel wherever you're living, that you've got that home base there. Well, Song 90 starts out with, Lord, you have been our dwelling place. What does he mean by that? Well, Israel as a nation, up to this point, had really been a homeless nation, a nation without a home. So under the patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, they kind of wandered and tented in the land. And then under Joseph, they went into Egypt and they became slaves in Egypt. And now they're wandering in the desert again. They've been wandering in slaves essentially their whole lives as a nation. And so they had no home but God. Spurgeon said it this way about the people of God: foxes have holes and birds of the air have nests, but saints dwell in their God. Jesus himself said it this way: abide in me. And later, if you remain in me, you will bear much fruit, but apart from me, you can do nothing. And so even Jesus said, your home is in God. And to emphasize how big is our God, Moses looked for a symbol of permanence. What symbol on earth could kind of grasp for humanity this big and permanent home that we have in God? Verse 2, before the mountains were born, or you brought forth the earth and the world, from everlasting to everlasting, you are God. So when there was no temple on the Jerusalem Mount, when there was no Jerusalem on the mount, when there was no mount on the earth, and then when there was no earth, from everlasting to everlasting, before anything was and until everything will be, you are God. And so he says, the one, God, you were there, the one more permanent than creation itself, you are our home. So when it feels like we're homeless, when it feels like we're wandering, when it feels like we're pilgrims and we don't have a place and we're separated from all that we know and love about life, we have never left our true home, who is God. So Moses opens his prayer with a reminder that God is big. He is our forever home. And while we all know this, it's a really good start because it's about to get dark. The song is going to turn dark. And you know how when the captain comes on the airplane and says, make sure you fasten your seatbelts because we're heading into turbulence? Okay, we're headed there now. Verses 3 to 6, we are small. You turned men back to dust, saying, return to dust, O sons of men, for 1,000 years in your sight are like a day that's gone by, or a watch in the night. You sweep men away in the sleep of death. They are like the new grass of the morning. It springs up new, but by evening it is dry and withered. So the song in Moses, they just pile up metaphors here to describe just how life flies. Dust, day over, night shift, a dream, grass. You know how it is when you wake up and you think, I was dreaming. I had this dream. What was it? Okay, in no time, we're going to wake up in eternity and our whole life will be like that dream. It will be over and gone. One old soldier described his end of life by telling his grown children, I'm flying over the drop zone now and I just don't know when the hatch will open. Okay, Adam, that's kind of disturbing. Well, yes, and true for all of us. Moses is reminding us that the talk about dreams and dust and grass doesn't just apply to senior, it applies to all of us. There's only 4 minutes of air that's in our nostrils that separates each of us from eternity. So the turbulence, by the way, is about to continue. So God is big, and we are small, but not only are we small, verses 7 to 11, we are sinners too. Now, I know people don't like to talk about this, but let's take a look. As Deb read earlier, soberly hear the human condition before a holy God. We are consumed by your anger and terrified by your indignation. You've set our sins before you, our secret sins in the light of your presence. All of our days pass away under your wrath. We finish our years with a moon. The length of our days is 70 years, or 80 if we have the strength. Yet their span is but trouble and sorrow, for they quickly pass and we fly away. Who knows the power of your anger? For your wrath is great as the fear that is due you. Okay. Don't race past this or dismiss it just as Old Testament vitriol. Sit for a moment and just let this sink in. We talk about how the world is broken, and usually when we say the world is broken, we mean out there. Things are broken, systems are broken, governments are broken, economies are broken, or whatever. People, it's broken. The humanity is broken, not out there. Humanity is broken in here. It is our hearts. It is humans who are broken. And I'm not ashamed to call myself a sinner because it is true. And it is true for all of us. Moses, who wrote this song, was a murderer. And the Apostle Paul, who wrote most of our New Testament, called himself the chief of sinners. Now, humanity is still there. We're not just, quote, imperfect. We are sinners, meaning we have fallen short of a perfect and holy God. And we have broken God's law, and we are under, as humanity, the just punishment of death, meaning separation from the life that God gave us. So just as Adam and Eve sinned in the garden and went and hid from God, we have been doing that ever since, sinning and hiding from God. Humans don't learn brokenness and sin from society. We import it. We are natural-born sinners. We just bring it in with us. But the good news is that God has not just left us to hide. He has come after us like he did with Adam and Eve and chased after them. Adam and Eve, where are you? And he was calling to Adam and Eve, and he's been calling to humanity ever since. And he has called to you and to me. So, Adam, that's kind of dark. No, it's real. And we're just going to be honest about the human problem, because unless we're honest about our sin and our need for forgiveness, we're going nowhere for a solution. So Moses had to face it head on here. And while it sounds like bad news, there's more to the story. Imagine your doctor comes in, your cardiologist, and he gives you a death sentence. He comes in and says, hey, I've got bad news. Your heart is diseased and it's going to go at any moment. Well, that's bad news. But he continues. We have a healthy heart, and your surgery can begin now. So yes, the human heart is dark and stubborn and dead before God. But God is bigger, and the story in Song 90 continues as God takes the lead. And in the next few verses at the end, as he concludes verses 12 to 17, God shows us that yes, while he is big and we are little, and in fact we are small, we are sinners, that God renews us. Moses does not despair with the bad news that we're sinners and under judgment, because God is in the lead. He is taking it forward. And here's the money verse, verse 12. Teach us to number our days aright, that we may gain a heart of wisdom. Moses is telling us, seize the day. Make use of today, not just because we're industrious Americans, not just because we want to make use of the resources God has given us, but that we are all going to face God. We're going to all meet God. You and I will meet God face to face one day, and we want to be ready for that moment. So we are counting our days. We count the days of our lives not like the days to our birthday, but like the days to Christmas. What's the difference? When you're waiting for your birthday, you just strike the days off waiting for something to happen. But when you're counting the days for Christmas, you're counting them to make them count, to get something done. You're preparing gifts for people. You're wrapping gifts. You're going to parties. You're preparing your own heart for the birth of the Savior. You're actually using that time to prepare for a moment that's coming so that when it comes, you can celebrate with joy. That's what the psalmist is saying, to number our days, to make them count so that when the real stuff happens, when eternity kicks off for you and for me, when that moment happens, we can meet God and rejoice and celebrate face to face, because we will have used the time he gave us to bring honor and glory to him. So use today. That's what God has given us, and that's what he has promised us, and no more. And with God as our eternal home, does it really matter if we live 30 years on earth or 60 years on earth or 100 years on earth? Without God, yes, it matters. Because without God, death is the end of everything about you, including you. All of your dreams, everything you've ever had, everything you ever hoped for, everything you ever built ends at your death. And everything that meant anything is ripped from you forever. All of the enjoyment and connection you had. And then without God in this life, you move on to eternal judgment and condemnation in the next life. But for the Christian, death is not the end. but it is the beginning of life as God meant it to be. Death has gone from executioner to gardener, okay? And now it's not the end of you, but it is only the end of the seed. It is the beginning of the plant. It is the beginning of the life. Remember the riddle of Samson, who found the honey out of the carcass of the lion. Out of the eater, something to eat. Out of death, something sweet. And that's what life is for the Christian. Out of the eater, something to eat. Out of death, something sweet. And so death for the Christian simply means leaving the darkness for the light, leaving the shadowlands for eternal glory, leaving shame for glory, leaving absence to enter presence, and most of all, to be in the presence of Him who is our eternal home. So, how can we number our days as Moses writes? It's right here in the song, 3 ways. First, in verse 11, fear God. Proverbs telling us that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. And so he says, may we fear God. Fearing God just means getting out of your own way and honoring God and standing and living in awe of God. It means emptying yourself of yourself to make room for God to fill you. That's what it means to fear God. I don't know if you've ever coached a team. I used to coach soccer here in Florence. I coached rec soccer, and it was fantastic. And it was really interesting to see how all these athletes, these kids would show up on the first day. Everybody's excited. Everybody has a different skill set, different level. But I told these soccer players, I asked them the question, what is the main thing you use to play with in soccer? What is the main tool, the main thing that you have? And of course, all of them said, our feet. I said, no. That's not the most important thing in a soccer match. The main thing about a soccer player is not his feet or his or her hands or head. The main thing about a soccer player is their heart. You play first with your heart. Then the second most important thing about you is your mind. You play with your mind. You got to want it, you got to study it and know it, and then your feet come third. And we train our feet third. And it was really interesting. Sometimes low-level players could skyrocket and really grow, and other higher-level players were stuck. Why? Because it depended on one thing. Were they teachable? Were they humble? Were they empty of themselves so I, the coach, could fill them with skill? Were they willing to lay down what they wanted to do for what was better for them to do? And you could see at the end of the season who was teachable, who was humble, and it served them well. And it serves us well too in life, to be humble, to fear God. Secondly, in verse 12, gain wisdom. We live to gain wisdom, not success, not savvy, not skill, not even advancement or money. The true currency of value in God's economy is wisdom. That is the currency that matters in God's economy. Wisdom is simply skill in godly living. Wisdom is what we look like when we look like God, when we're acting like God, when we are forgiving because He is forgiving, when we're gracious because He is gracious, when we are generous because He is generous, when we're sacrificial because He is sacrificial. Wisdom is what we look like when we look like God. It's what we look like in godly living. It's what we look like when we are living in the power of the Spirit and living the fruit of the Spirit and being truly His hands and feet and voice to a world that needs to hear it and see it. So fear God. Gain wisdom in verse 12. And thirdly and finally, in verse 17, he closes it with serve faithfully. Serve faithfully. May the favor of the Lord our God rest upon us. Establish the work of our hands for us. Yes, establish the work of our hands. Note here he is praying that God establish the work of their hands. They're working together. They're working in concert. No sitting around just praying for a miracle. God, have mercy. Yes, they pray. Yes, they pray. And yes, they trust the Lord. But it's not sitting around and doing nothing. It is, Lord, establish the work of our hands. Christianity starts with believing and ends with doing. It starts in your heart and ends in your hands and feet. It is not an either or, it's a both and. It's faith and works. So God is a God of love and action, and so should we be. It was Jesus himself who told that story about the talented servants, that the landowner, the Lord of the manor, went on a large trip and he entrusted his liquid assets to 3 servants. To one servant, he gave 5 talents. To another servant, he gave 2 talents. And to a third servant, he gave 1 talent. And when he returned, he judged them not on how much they had, but on simply how faithful they had been to put it to use. I don't know how many more days I have with Paul at home. I don't know how long I will live. I don't know how long Paul will be here, or with John or with Anna. or honestly to be Heather's husband or to be a pastor or a son or a brother. But I do know this, I have today, and you have it too. And my prayer is that I will fear God and be teachable, that I will gain wisdom and I will serve faithfully today. That's what we have. And so if you don't know God or aren't sure you know God, write me. Let's talk. And let's get that sorted out and get you introduced so that you can know God in this life and the next before you wake up from the dream of life into eternity of judgment without God as you lived in this life. If you do know Christ, then you have today too. And I look forward to hanging out with you in heaven one day and celebrating the awesome miracles that God did in us first and then through us as he expressed his life and his power through our lives and the crazy things that God could do through simple sinners like us to bring his life through us to a world of death that needs to know and see and experience the life of God at work in humans. It is a miracle and it's still happening today like it did then. And so, whoever you are, whatever you do, the song that Moses gave us ends on a super high note that we can ask God to establish the work of our hands. We can work together with God to make a real difference in the lives of people. So don't waste your life. Number your days before God to use them for things that matter forever. God, the Word of God, and people. And let's be a blessing on the earth as he is to us. So Father in heaven, we thank you that you've given us your word, this song, which gives such great voice to our struggles. And help us to remember that you are big, that we are small, that we are sinners, but that you renew us with your life. And help us, Lord, to gain wisdom, to fear God, and to serve faithfully, because great is thy faithfulness. O Lord, our rock, you are faithful now and always. So through Christ we pray. Amen.